Thomas Mitchell had worked as a security guard at Clarence House for nearly 15 years. He knew every corner, every creak in the floorboards, and every shadow that danced across the walls during his late-night rounds. At 52 years old, Thomas was the kind of man who noticed details others missed. His sharp eyes and careful attention to his duties had earned him the respect of his supervisors and the trust of the royal household staff. On that cold February evening, Thomas was conducting his regular security check when he noticed something unusual in the kitchen area. The ancient building often settled and shifted, but tonight there was a different sound coming from beneath his feet. As he walked across the stone floor near the main preparation area, he heard a hollow echo that hadn't been there before. The sound was subtle, almost like walking over a hidden cavity. Thomas knelt down and ran his weathered hands across the cold stone tiles. Most people would have dismissed the sound as normal building settlement, but Thomas had been walking these floors for too many years to ignore such changes. He retrieved his flashlight from his belt and examined the floor more carefully. The beam of light revealed something that made his heart skip a beat. One section of the kitchen floor showed signs of recent disturbance. The mortar between several stones appeared fresher than the surrounding areas, and there were barely visible scratch marks around the edges of what looked like a rectangular section of flooring. Thomas had seen enough renovation work in the palace over the years to recognize when stones had been recently removed and replaced. The next morning, Thomas approached his supervisor, James Crawford, with his concerns. Crawford was a stern man in his early 60s who had managed palace security for over 2 decades. He listened carefully as Thomas described his discovery, his expression growing more serious with each detail. Crawford decided they needed to investigate further, but any work involving the royal residences required careful coordination with multiple departments. He contacted the head of maintenance, Robert Shaw, who had overseen building repairs and renovations at Clarence House for nearly 30 years. Shaw was known for his meticulous record-keeping and his deep knowledge of the building's history. When Shaw examined the area Thomas had identified, his face went pale. He pulled out his detailed maintenance logs and searched through months of records. According to his documentation, no authorized work had been performed in that section of the kitchen for over 18 months. The last entry showed routine floor cleaning and inspection, with no mention of any stone removal or replacement. The 3 men stood in the empty kitchen as Shaw explained the building's structure. The kitchen area sat above a series of old storage cellars that dated back to the building's construction in the 1820s. These underground spaces had been used for various purposes over the decades, from wine storage to air raid shelters during World War II. Most of these areas had been sealed off years ago for security reasons. Crawford made the decision to contact the Metropolitan Police's specialized unit that handled security matters involving royal properties. Detective Inspector Sarah Hughes arrived that afternoon with a small team of investigators. Hughes was a seasoned officer who had worked on sensitive cases involving government buildings and historic properties. Hughes examined the floor area with professional interest. She had Thomas walk her through exactly what he had observed and when. The detective took detailed photographs of the disturbed stones and the surrounding area. She also interviewed Shaw about the building's history and any recent maintenance work. The investigation team used ground-penetrating radar equipment to scan beneath the kitchen floor. The results confirmed Thomas's suspicions. There was definitely a hollow space below the stones, and something substantial appeared to be stored in that hidden area. The radar showed the outline of what looked like a rectangular chamber, approximately 6 feet long and 4 feet wide. Hughes consulted with legal experts about the proper procedures for investigating areas within royal residences. The situation required delicate handling due to the sensitive nature of the location and the potential security implications. After several hours of consultation, authorization was granted to carefully remove the stones and examine what lay beneath. The next morning, a team of specialists arrived with proper excavation equipment. They worked slowly and methodically, photographing each step of the process. The stones came away more easily than expected, revealing that they had indeed been recently disturbed. Beneath the floor lay a metal container, approximately the size of a large trunk, wrapped in heavy plastic and secured with modern locks. Thomas watched nervously as the container was carefully lifted from its hiding place. The weight required 4 men to carry it safely. The metal showed signs of age, but appeared to be in good condition. More importantly, the container bore no official markings or labels that might indicate its authorized placement. Hughes ordered the container to be transported to a secure facility for examination. Before it was moved, every detail was photographed and documented. The empty space beneath the floor was also thoroughly examined for any additional items or clues about when and why the container had been hidden there. As news of the discovery spread through the limited circle of people involved in the investigation, questions began to emerge. Who had placed this container beneath the kitchen floor? When had it been hidden? Most importantly, what did it contain that required such secretive storage? Shaw provided building plans and historical records to help the investigation team understand the layout of the underground areas. The plans revealed a complex network of cellars and tunnels that connected different parts of the building. Some of these passages had been forgotten over the years, sealed behind walls or blocked by later construction work. The investigation team discovered that accessing the area beneath the kitchen floor would have required considerable planning and inside knowledge of the building's structure. Someone would have needed detailed information about the underground layout, access to proper tools, and enough time to complete the work without being detected by security. Thomas found himself thinking about the implications of his discovery as he continued his security rounds. Who among the staff or frequent visitors would have had the knowledge and opportunity to hide something beneath the kitchen floor? The list of people with that level of access was surprisingly short. Hughes interviewed members of the household staff who had worked at Clarence House during the past 2 years. Most were long-term employees who had served the royal family faithfully for many years. The interviews revealed no obvious suspects, but several staff members mentioned occasional contractors and maintenance workers who had performed various jobs throughout the building. The detective also reviewed security footage from the past 6 months, looking for any unusual activity in or around the kitchen area. The footage showed normal daily operations, with kitchen staff, cleaners, and security personnel going about their regular duties. However, there were several gaps in the coverage during routine maintenance periods when cameras had been temporarily relocated. As the initial investigation continued, Hughes began to suspect that hiding the container had been a carefully planned operation. The person or persons responsible had chosen their timing well, taking advantage of periods when security coverage was reduced and when the kitchen area was unoccupied for extended periods. The container was transported under heavy security to a specialized facility equipped for examining potentially sensitive materials. Hughes assembled a team of experts, including forensic specialists, historians, and security analysts. Each person involved in the examination process was required to sign strict confidentiality agreements. Before opening the container, the team performed extensive external examinations. They checked for any security devices, chemical residues, or other potential hazards. The locks appeared to be standard commercial models, suggesting the container had not been sealed by professional security personnel. Thomas returned to his normal duties, but he found it difficult to concentrate on routine security tasks. His discovery had set in motion a chain of events that could potentially affect the royal family. He wondered if he had done the right thing by reporting what he had found. Perhaps some secrets were better left buried. Crawford assured Thomas that he had acted appropriately and professionally. The security chief explained that maintaining the safety and integrity of royal residences required reporting any unusual discoveries regardless of their potential implications. Thomas's attention to detail and commitment to his duties had prevented a potentially serious security breach from going undetected. As word of the investigation began to circulate among senior palace staff, careful measures were taken to maintain secrecy. Only essential personnel were informed about the discovery, and all involved parties were reminded of their obligations regarding confidential information related to royal properties. Hughes prepared preliminary reports for her superiors, outlining the circumstances of the discovery and the initial findings of the investigation. The reports would eventually reach the highest levels of law enforcement and government security agencies, given the sensitive nature of the location where the container had been found. The detective knew that whatever the container held, its discovery would likely have significant consequences. Items hidden in such circumstances usually contained information or materials that someone had desperately wanted to keep secret. The question now was whether those secrets would remain buried or whether Thomas's discovery would bring them into the light. Meanwhile, preparations continued for the careful opening and examination of the mysterious container. Hughes and her team knew they were about to uncover secrets that someone had gone to great lengths to hide. The discovery beneath the kitchen floor of Clarence House was about to reveal truths that would shock those who learned of them. Thomas continued his security rounds, knowing that his careful attention to an unusual sound had started an investigation that would soon reveal secrets hidden in the very heart of the royal residence. He had no idea that his discovery would ultimately expose information that would leave the monarchy reeling from the revelations about to emerge from that carefully concealed metal container. Detective Inspector Sarah Hughes stood in the sterile examination room as her team prepared to open the mysterious container. 3 days had passed since its discovery beneath the kitchen floor at Clarence House. The metal box sat on a steel table under bright lights, surrounded by cameras and recording equipment that would document every moment of what they might find inside. Dr. Elizabeth Hartley, a forensic specialist with 20 years of experience handling sensitive government materials, led the opening procedure. She wore protective gloves and used specialized tools to avoid damaging any potential evidence. The locks opened with surprising ease, suggesting they had been designed for accessibility rather than maximum security. As the lid lifted, Hughes felt her breath catch. The container was filled with carefully organized documents, photographs, and what appeared to be audio recording equipment from several decades past. Everything was wrapped in protective plastic and organized with meticulous care. Someone had taken great effort to preserve these materials for future discovery. The top layer contained a handwritten letter dated 15 years earlier. Dr. Hartley carefully removed it with tweezers and placed it under a magnifying device. The elegant handwriting was immediately recognizable to Hughes, who had spent years studying documents related to royal investigations. The letter was signed by a name that made everyone in the room fall silent. Hughes quickly secured the area and ordered additional security measures. She realized they had stumbled upon something far more significant than anyone had anticipated. The letter appeared to be a confession of sorts, written by someone with intimate knowledge of royal family activities and personal relationships. Dr. Hartley continued the examination process, carefully cataloging each item as it was removed from the container. There were dozens of photographs showing people in compromising situations, many taken in what appeared to be private royal residences. Some images were clearly taken without the knowledge of the subjects, suggesting covert surveillance had been conducted over many years. Among the documents were detailed financial records showing money transfers between various accounts, some linked to offshore banking institutions. The amounts involved were substantial, running into millions of pounds over a period of several years. Each transaction was meticulously documented with dates, amounts, and cryptic reference codes. Hughes contacted her superior, Chief Superintendent Michael Barnes, to report the preliminary findings. Barnes immediately understood the gravity of the situation and authorized the formation of a special investigation unit. The team would include representatives from multiple agencies, including MI5, given the national security implications of the discovery. The audio equipment found in the container included several small recording devices and dozens of cassette tapes. Each tape was labeled with dates spanning a 15-year period. Dr. Hartley's team began the delicate process of digitizing these recordings to determine their contents without damaging the original materials. As the first recordings were played back, the investigation team heard conversations between high-ranking members of the royal household staff. The quality was remarkably clear, suggesting the recording equipment had been professionally installed and maintained. More disturbing was the content of these conversations, which revealed detailed discussions about covering up various incidents and managing public relations crises. One particularly shocking recording contained a conversation between two individuals discussing payments made to suppress news stories that could have damaged the royal family's reputation. The speakers talked openly about bribing journalists and threatening media outlets that refused to cooperate with their demands for silence. Hughes realized they were dealing with evidence of a systematic campaign of surveillance and manipulation that had been conducted from within the royal household itself. Someone with extraordinary access had been secretly documenting activities and conversations for over a decade, creating a comprehensive record of activities that were never meant to become public knowledge. The photographs revealed even more disturbing information. Several images showed members of the royal family in situations that would have caused major scandals if they had been published. Other photos documented meetings between royal staff members and individuals known to have connections to foreign intelligence services. Dr. Hartley's team found detailed maps of royal residences showing security camera locations, guard patrol routes, and areas where surveillance equipment could be hidden without detection. The maps were annotated with handwritten notes describing the best times and methods for conducting covert activities without being discovered by official security personnel. Among the most shocking documents was a detailed plan describing how to manipulate public opinion during times of crisis affecting the royal family. The plan included lists of compliant journalists, media outlets that could be counted on for favorable coverage, and strategies for discrediting critics and whistleblowers. Hughes ordered immediate security sweeps of all royal residences to check for hidden surveillance equipment that might still be in place. The investigation had revealed that the royal family had been living under covert observation for years, possibly without ever realizing the extent of the surveillance being conducted around them. The financial documents revealed a complex network of payments and transactions that appeared designed to hide the source and destination of large sums of money. Some payments were labeled as consulting fees, while others were disguised as charitable donations or maintenance expenses. The pattern suggested a sophisticated money laundering operation. As the team continued their examination, they discovered encrypted computer files stored on several small storage devices. The encryption was sophisticated but not impenetrable with modern decryption technology. Hughes authorized the involvement of cybersecurity specialists to access these digital files safely. One of the most significant discoveries was a detailed journal written by the person who had assembled this collection of evidence. The journal entries spanned several years and described the author's growing concern about activities they had witnessed within the royal household. The writer expressed fear for their personal safety and uncertainty about whom they could trust with the information they had gathered. The journal revealed that the person responsible for creating this hidden archive had been motivated by a sense of duty to preserve evidence of what they saw as serious wrongdoing. They had carefully documented their observations over many years, always planning to reveal the truth at the appropriate time, but apparently dying or disappearing before they could do so. Hughes began to piece together the identity of the person who had created this secret archive. The handwriting analysis, combined with employment records and security clearance information, pointed to someone who had worked in a position of considerable trust within the royal household. This individual would have had access to private conversations, financial records, and sensitive operational information. The investigation team discovered that several key staff members who had worked at royal residences during the relevant time period had died under circumstances that now seemed suspicious. Heart attacks, accidents, and sudden illnesses had claimed the lives of people who might have known about the surveillance activities or the existence of the hidden archive. Dr. Hartley's analysis of the audio recordings revealed that some conversations had been edited, with certain portions removed or altered. This suggested that even within this secret archive, someone had been selective about what information to preserve and what to eliminate. The missing segments might have contained even more damaging information. The photographs included images of documents that appeared to be classified government communications related to royal family security arrangements. If authentic, these images suggested that classified information had been systematically copied and preserved without authorization, representing a serious breach of national security protocols. Hughes realized that the scope of the investigation needed to expand significantly. They were no longer dealing with a simple case of hidden materials, but with evidence of what appeared to be long-term intelligence gathering and possible blackmail operations conducted from within the highest levels of the royal establishment. The team discovered detailed profiles of journalists, politicians, and other public figures who had covered royal family stories over the years. These profiles included personal information about their financial situations, family relationships, and personal vulnerabilities that could be exploited to influence their reporting or public statements. Among the most disturbing findings were transcripts of telephone conversations that had been intercepted and recorded without the knowledge of the participants. The conversations included private discussions between members of the royal family and their personal friends, advisors, and family members. The level of surveillance revealed by these transcripts was extraordinary and deeply invasive. The investigation team found evidence that the surveillance operation had extended beyond royal residences to include monitoring of hotels, private clubs, and other locations frequented by members of the royal family. The operation appeared to have been conducted with professional-grade equipment and sophisticated techniques typically associated with intelligence agencies. As Hughes reviewed the mounting evidence, she realized that the discovery beneath the kitchen floor had exposed a conspiracy that reached into the highest levels of the royal establishment. The careful documentation and systematic nature of the surveillance suggested that multiple people had been involved in creating and maintaining this secret archive over many years. The evidence pointed to a level of internal surveillance and manipulation that would shock the public and potentially destabilize the monarchy if it became widely known. Hughes knew that her team was now responsible for handling information that could fundamentally change public perception of the royal family and the institutions that surrounded them. The preliminary examination of the container's contents had revealed enough evidence to justify a major investigation involving multiple government agencies. Hughes prepared detailed reports for her superiors, knowing that the information would soon reach the highest levels of government and potentially involve the Prime Minister's office in decisions about how to proceed with the investigation. The secrets hidden beneath Camillas' kitchen floor were about to expose a web of surveillance, manipulation, and possible criminal activity that had been operating within the royal household for over a decade. The monarchy was about to face revelations that would test its ability to survive one of the most serious scandals in its modern history. The decrypted digital files revealed the most shocking secrets yet discovered. Chief Superintendent Michael Barnes sat in the secure briefing room at Scotland Yard, reading reports that would forever change his understanding of how the royal household operated behind closed doors. The investigation had grown to involve over 30 specialists from various government agencies, all sworn to absolute secrecy about their findings. Dr. Hartley's forensic team had successfully accessed the encrypted storage devices found in the container. The digital files contained years of secretly recorded video footage from hidden cameras placed throughout multiple royal residences. The quality and positioning of these recordings suggested that a sophisticated surveillance network had been operating undetected for over a decade. Detective Inspector Hughes watched in stunned silence as the team reviewed footage showing private conversations between senior members of the royal family. The recordings captured discussions about manipulating public opinion, covering up embarrassing incidents, and making decisions that directly contradicted their public statements and official positions. One particularly damaging video showed a heated argument between two high-ranking royals about dividing proceeds from secret business deals that had been conducted using royal connections and influence. The conversation revealed that certain family members had been profiting substantially from their positions while publicly promoting charitable causes and financial transparency. The investigation team discovered that the surveillance operation had been masterminded by someone identified in the hidden documents only as the Observer. This individual had apparently worked within the royal household for many years, gaining the trust of family members and senior staff, while systematically documenting their private activities and conversations. Barnes authorized an expanded investigation to identify the Observer and determine how such an extensive surveillance operation could have been conducted without detection by official security services. The investigation revealed significant gaps in security protocols that had been exploited by someone with intimate knowledge of royal household operations. Analysis of the handwriting samples and other evidence pointed to Margaret Thornton, a former private secretary who had worked for several members of the royal family over a 20-year period before her sudden death from a heart attack 18 months earlier. Thornton had been considered one of the most trusted and reliable staff members in the royal household. The investigation team discovered that Thornton had been suffering from terminal cancer during her final months of life. Medical records showed that her diagnosis had been kept secret from her employers and colleagues. The evidence suggested that her knowledge of her approaching death had motivated her to preserve the evidence she had collected, possibly intending for it to be discovered after her passing. Hughes reviewed Thornton's employment history and security clearance records. As a private secretary, she had enjoyed extraordinary access to confidential information, private residences, and personal conversations. Her position had required absolute discretion and trustworthiness, qualities that had made her surveillance activities virtually undetectable. The digital archive revealed that Thornton had documented systematic financial irregularities within royal household accounts. Large sums of money had been diverted from charitable funds to personal accounts, while other funds had been used to pay for services that were never officially acknowledged, including payments to private investigators and media consultants. Among the most explosive revelations were audio recordings of conversations about manipulating succession planning within the royal family. The recordings captured discussions about medical conditions that had been hidden from the public and conversations about changing established protocols to favor certain family members over others in matters of inheritance and official duties. The investigation team found evidence that several prominent public figures, including politicians and business leaders, had been compromised through carefully orchestrated scenarios designed to create embarrassing situations that could later be used for influence and control. Thornton had documented these operations with meticulous detail. Dr. Hartley's analysis revealed that some of the most damaging evidence had been collected during state visits and diplomatic functions. Hidden recording devices had captured private conversations between royal family members and foreign dignitaries, including discussions about arms deals, trade agreements, and international political arrangements that contradicted official government positions. Barnes realized that the evidence contained information that could affect national security and international diplomatic relationships. He authorized the involvement of MI6 representatives to assess the potential impact of the revelations on Britain's relationships with allied nations and ongoing diplomatic initiatives. The investigation uncovered a secret communication network that had been used to coordinate activities between certain royal family members and external organizations, without going through official channels. This network had facilitated business deals, political arrangements, and personal relationships that violated established protocols for royal family conduct. Hughes discovered that Thornton had also documented evidence of tax evasion and money laundering operations conducted using royal family resources and connections. The schemes had been sophisticated and had operated for years without detection by revenue authorities or financial regulatory agencies. The hidden archive contained detailed records of payments made to journalists and media executives to suppress negative stories and promote favorable coverage. The evidence showed that certain media outlets had been receiving regular payments disguised as advertising contracts or consulting fees in exchange for editorial compliance. Among the most shocking discoveries were recordings that revealed how certain royal family members had used their positions to influence legal proceedings, including pressuring prosecutors to drop charges against associates and using royal connections to obtain favorable treatment in court cases. The investigation team found evidence that several deaths of former staff members, previously attributed to natural causes or accidents, might have been deliberately caused to prevent the exposure of sensitive information. Thornton's documentation suggested that people who had learned too much about certain activities had been systematically eliminated. Barnes ordered a comprehensive review of all deaths of royal household staff over the past 20 years. The review revealed patterns that were disturbing when viewed together, including several cases where individuals had died shortly after expressing concerns about activities they had witnessed or been asked to participate in. The digital files revealed that Thornton had been planning to expose the information she had collected, but had been uncertain about the safest way to do so. Her journal entries showed increasing paranoia about her personal safety as she came to understand the full scope of the activities she had documented. Hughes found evidence that Thornton had attempted to contact several journalists and legal authorities during her final months, but had been unable to find anyone she trusted enough to receive the sensitive information. Her growing fear had led her to hide the evidence beneath the kitchen floor, hoping it would eventually be discovered by someone who could act on it appropriately. The investigation revealed that the surveillance operation had extended to monitoring the activities of government officials who worked closely with the royal family. Cabinet ministers, civil servants, and security personnel had been unknowingly observed and recorded during their interactions with royal family members. Dr. Hartley's team discovered that some of the audio recordings had been enhanced using sophisticated technology to clarify conversations that had taken place in challenging acoustic environments. The level of technical sophistication suggested that Thornton had received training or assistance from professionals with intelligence-gathering experience. The evidence showed that certain charitable organizations associated with the royal family had been used as fronts for money laundering operations. Donations had been diverted through complex networks of accounts before being used for personal expenses or invested in private business ventures that benefited royal family members. Barnes prepared a comprehensive briefing for the Home Secretary, knowing that the information would need to reach the highest levels of government. The evidence collected from beneath the kitchen floor represented one of the most serious challenges to the monarchy in modern British history. The investigation team found recordings of conversations between royal family members and representatives of foreign governments discussing arrangements that bypassed official diplomatic channels. These conversations revealed that unofficial foreign policy decisions had been made without the knowledge or approval of elected government officials. Hughes realized that the scope of the revelations would require careful consideration of how to proceed without causing irreparable damage to British institutions, while still ensuring that justice was served where crimes had been committed. The evidence was too substantial to ignore, but its public release could destabilize the entire constitutional system. The hidden archive contained detailed plans for manipulating public opinion during future crises, including prepared statements for various scenarios and lists of media contacts who could be relied upon to promote specific narratives. The level of preparation suggested that managing public perception had become a primary concern for certain royal family members. As the investigation concluded its preliminary phase, Barnes and Hughes understood that they possessed evidence that could fundamentally alter the relationship between the monarchy and the British people. The secrets that Thomas Mitchell had inadvertently discovered during his security rounds had exposed a level of corruption and manipulation that few could have imagined existed within the royal household. The evidence collected from Margaret Thornton's carefully hidden archive would now force government officials to make difficult decisions about how to address the revelations while maintaining stability within British society. The monarchy faced its greatest crisis in centuries, all because a dedicated security guard had noticed an unusual sound beneath a kitchen floor. The investigation would continue for months as officials worked to verify the evidence and determine appropriate legal and constitutional responses to the shocking revelations. The secrets that had been buried beneath Camillas' kitchen floor had finally come to light, and their exposure would forever change the British monarchy's relationship with its people and its role in modern democratic society. The Guard's discovery had unleashed a storm that would reshape British institutions and force a reckoning with decades of hidden activities that had operated in the shadows of royal privilege and power. The monarchy would never be the same after the truth emerged from that carefully concealed metal container.